So one of you told before, some 15% of the diabetic population will one day or another in diabetes. And the passages slow down, and progressively the nerve degenerates, and it is the time when the pain abates, disappears. But unfortunately, when disappears the pain, also disappears the nerve. Patients don't perceive anything more. The good thing from my point of view is that the taller the patient is, the more probable is the degeneration of the nerve. So those who are not very tall are protected somehow from this renal story. He had a neuronal damage, second line, but most important is that we had an experiment of time. He had the same problem 4 months and took 10 months before. In diabetics, there is a slow healing ulcer that doesn't require very much, is not able to compete for proteins, but also has a big competitor in the body, that is the endogenous glucose production that subtracts an enormous quantity of glucose. Just for a remark, and this situation of glucose production throughout the day is continuous. Not only the fasting condition, but also when a diabetic eats, is endogenous blood glucose production continues unabated. So this is why we find some enormous quantities of blood glucose after a meal, even not such a great meal. And that's not to deny that much of the high blood glucose is also dependent on the reduced metabolism of glucose, of course, because diabetics have a double problem with their blood glucose. First is the overproduction. Subjects are malnourished. No wonder that they have non-healing wounds. And this, by the way, this was reversed after 6 months of nutrition with one of the products of the Glucerna family. This was somehow obviated, normalized. But I want to point out that in diabetes, just think of this. 100 of ingested proteins can give rise to 50, 80 grams of glucose. The rate of conversion, the expense of conversion of blood glucose control to reduce the wasting of proteins, and sure, supplemental of HMB, glutamine, arginine. This is just to recap what my colleagues said before me, but maintain HMB, glutamine, and arginine have at least some of these actions. Maintain the body proteins, for support the synthesis of collagen. We also notice that with respect to other treatments, nutritional treatments, we have an increase in re-epithelialization of the nutritional in calories. The calories he needs, and he substituted the calories with glucose infusion. So he only gave glucose and insulin, and still holds true in a lot of situations. So I'm not sure of that. For the moment, I think that Abound is only indicated for the treatment of neuropathic ulcers. There are other products of the Abbott family that can be used to improve nutrition, but not Abound. And I'm not sure that they can work in recovering the nerve sensitivity.
Because if you can improve the neuropathic ulcer, then probably we can also improve the conduction in the nerve. But my question is, what stage can we give Abound in neuropathy? Because there are different stages.
Yeah, well, that's an important point. You can give it for ulcer prevention. Whenever you suspect that a subject has a serious impairment of this condition and has the initial warning signs of diabetic possible risk for ulcer, I think you are completely justified in using the product, because you are improving the thickness of the skin, the resilience of the skin. The skin can